So good morning, students. I am Dr. Mercy, Assistant Professor in the Department of Community Medicine, Sri Lakshminarayana Institute of Medical Sciences, Pondicherry. So today for topic for a theory class will be on sociology, the broad topic under which we will be seeing on family and qualitative research in detail. Okay. So moving on, the outline of my presentation will include the definition of a family, types of family, the functions that the family has taken, the role of family in health and disease, qualitative research and its types, differences between qualitative and quantitative research, focus group discussion in detail, and what are all the barriers in a qualitative research. Okay. So whenever you read a topic, you must be familiar with the university questions in that particular topic. Okay, so some university questions in this topic will be on the definition of a family and describe in detail about the types of family and its functions. Give a note on the role of family in health and disease. And they can also ask about a qualitative research, that is the definition, and to explain about the focus group discussion in detail. Okay, moving on into the topic proper. So what is mean by family? So this word family has been derived from the Latin word that is a famulus, which means a servant. Okay, so the proper definition was coined by Burgess and Locke, who defined the family as a group of persons united by ties of marriage or by blood relation or by adoption, and they constitute a single household, interacting and intercommunicating with each other in their respective social roles of husband and wife, and father and mother, son and daughter, brother and sister, and creating a common culture. So this group of persons, they must be united by means of a marriage, blood, or an adoption. So these are the three important ties under a family, and they has to play their role in and roles and responsibilities in that particular family. So this is the definition of the family. So moving on, what are all the types of family we must be known of or aware of? So Eliot and Merrill described or defined family as a biological and a social unit. So mainly composed of husband, wife, and their children. Okay. So the main types based on the structure will be the nuclear family. Next will be the joint family or the extended family. So this extended family can be a vertically extended or the horizontally extended family. So what do you mean by the nuclear family? So the definition goes like a small group composed of husband and wife and immature children, which constitutes a unit apart from the rest of the community. So husband, wife, and their children. So they form the nuclear family. So they don't have any of their siblings of the husband or wife or their grandchildren or the children of the uncle or aunt. So nothing like that. So only the husband, wife, and the children. So there are two types of nuclear families, that is a family of orientation and family of procreation. So what do you mean by family of orientation? It is a family in which a person is born and brought up into it, and includes his mother, father, brothers, and sisters. Okay. So family of procreation is, it's a family which the person establishes by his marriage, which includes the wife, sons, and the daughters. So what are the advantages of a nuclear family? The husband and wife have more time, so they have more intimacy and privacy in that family, and they have more of a freedom. Whereas the disadvantages is that there is no elderly person to look after the children and give advice to the new couple. Okay. So the nuclear family life cycle, there is a life cycle for this nuclear family. Okay. So what are the phases of this family? So there are 6 phases, mainly the formation, extension, complete extension, contraction, completed contraction, and dissolution. So what do you mean by the term formation? So it's the beginning of the marriage and the end of the birth. That is, end will be the birth of the first child. Whereas in extension, it starts from the formation, birth of the first child to the birth of the last child. Next, the complete extension is from the previous thing, birth of the last child to the first child leaving the home. Next, the contraction will be the first child leaving the home to the last child leaving the home. Okay, so the completed contraction is the last child has already left the home and one of the spouses has or death dies. Okay. Finally, the dissolution will be the first spouse dies and the death of the survivor, the existing survivor. So these are the phases like formation, extension, complete extension, contraction, completed contraction, and finally the dissolution. So this is the life cycle in any nuclear family. Next, moving on to the joint family, the definition goes by a group of people who generally live under a single roof and who eat cooked food at one hearth, hold property in common, and who participate in common family worship and are related to each other as some particular type of kindred. Okay, so there is a group of people living under a single unit as a joint family. Okay. So the types of joint families are patriarchal joint family, that is a male dominated family, and matriarchal joint family, that is a female dominated family. Okay. So the main advantages will be it ensures economic progress. There will be division of labor among the family members. There will be social security, and they have certain social values or virtues, that is a cooperation, affection, and sacrifices between the family members. And there will be the care of the old people, widows, and physically handicapped. So these are the advantages in the joint family. So the main disadvantage is that they won't have any privacy or freedom. Okay, there will be hindrance in the development of a particular personality, and they become a home for the idlers. So only the working people will be keep on working, whereas the lazy people will be lazy only in a joint family, and it encourages litigations and sometimes leads on to quarrels. So these are some of the disadvantages in the joint family. So the other miscellaneous classifications based on their authority, it can be a male dominated family or a female dominated family. Based on the residence, it's like a husband going to the wife's house, that is matrilocal family, or the wife going to the husband's house, that is the most common, which is the patrilocal family. Okay. Next, based on their ancestry, it is matrilineal, that's the right of property is females. Patrilineal, the right of property is males. Next is endogamous, the marriage is allowed among the group members only, whereas in exogamous, no restrictions, okay, in marriage. On basis of marriage, it can be a monogamous family, polygamous family, and a polyandrous family. And other families like quasi-family, problem families, and broken families, okay. So the main functions of any family is satisfaction of the physical, psychological, and social needs. Okay, it's the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Next, procreation or the development of children and rearing of children, and provision of home and insurance to the people who are all living under a single roof. Okay. Some non-essential functions like it serves as an economic unit and center for religious training, education of children, care during the sickness, old age, and widowhood, recreation, and finally socialization, that is conveying values, modes of behavior, language, cleanliness, and some of the nutritious values. Okay. So role of family in health and disease. What do you mean by that? It's mainly dependent on the three important characteristics. First and foremost is maintenance of health and health promotion. Next is the illness or the illness behavior in family, and finally the community care. Okay. So under maintenance of health, we have mainly the child rearing. So this family member should have adequate knowledge on the breastfeeding, weaning, and immunization practices. And they should know about the feeding habits, sleep, nutrition, hygiene, and clothing, and habit training. So mainly it is affected by the capital resources in a particular family. Okay. Next, they have to be the stress busters or the strain relievers in that particular family. And some genetic diseases goes through in the families like hemophilia and diabetes, and some mental illness like schizophrenia have the familial incidence. So these are some of the health and diseases in that particular family. And most common communicable diseases can be more commonly like tuberculosis, scabies, and chickenpox. So respiratory illness are more common, and diseases related to environment and sanitation. So we have also seen what do you mean by a broken family, in which there is parents will be separated or death of one of the parents. Okay, so there will be more of the distraction, or there will be developmental delays among the children in respect to growth retardation of speech and the intellect. Okay, so this leads on to the social and behavioral abnormalities among the children. Next is taking care of the aged and handicapped. So all the vulnerable will be taken care in a joint family, like the women during pregnancy, childbirth, and proper care can be given. Okay. Next is illness, as we all seen. Certain illnesses runs in the families, and injuries and accidents are also common among the families. Okay. So they are taking care of the handicapped members of the family. Finally, community care is mainly involved around the term that is socialization. It's a process by which an individual develops the essential qualities for functioning as a unit in that particular society, for which family forms a basic unit. Okay. Next is families lagging behind the rest of community may be due to the illness, backwardness, poverty, or emotional instability and marital disharmony. So these are some of the characteristics by which a problem family can be identified. They are more common in the lower socioeconomic class. Okay. So any family can give the personality formation or information of the particular individual that forms a basis for the family unit. Okay, so as we have so far seen about a family and its unit, we must know what are all the research methodologies available in a particular social area or the society or in a community in order to map the characteristics of the particular area. So that is, we call this by the name called the social mapping. Okay. So it's also known by the term as the qualitative research. We want to know about the perspective of an individual in that particular family. So this family forms a society, and society, many societies together form the community. So it describes and analyzes the culture and behavior from the point of view of those being studied, which we call it as the emic perspective. Okay, seeing the world through the participants' eyes. So these are some of the methods of qualitative research, like the participatory research techniques, social mapping, transect walk, force feed analysis, Venn diagram, seasonal calendar, and the Venn diagram. So of which the main common thing is the participatory research techniques. Okay. And various other in-depth interviews like focused in-depth techniques like focus group discussion, key informant interviews, and the in-depth interviews. Finally, we have certain free listing and file sorting exercises, which are the systematic techniques. Okay. So these are the techniques we follow in qualitative research. So when to use a qualitative research? So mainly it in order to bring out the cultural and social influences in that particular society. Okay. And to answer new questions and complex phenomena which we are unable to understand by means of the quantitative research, and to get an in-depth understanding of various concepts involved in that particular illness or the health behavior, for example, like the health-seeking behavior. And we want to know the perspective of the individuals who are living in that particular community. That is a perspective of the research participants. And finally, we can construct a theory from that research, that is called the theory-based learning. Okay. So next is a grounded theory. So we collect the data and information from the individuals by means of certain open-ended questions, and from these open-ended questions we are able to detect certain theories or certain concepts. That is a new theory getting developed, and they narrow down to the grounded theory. Okay. And one more is ethnography, which is mainly the study of people by living among them, that is living in the particular surrounding in which the people live. For example, the tribal studies, okay, lower socioeconomic groups in which we want to study the cultural influences. So studying the people with their cultural background, which is a descriptive study, for which the researcher must be familiarized with that particular surroundings. So that is brought out by the ethnographic studies. Next is the linear research. Next is the linear research in which it has the definition, objective, and the problem. Determine the research design and design and prepare research instrument, sampling and data collection, and finally the analyze the data. Finally, we want to visualize, communicate, and give the results. Okay. So it is always an iterative model in which the research questions will have, there will be construction, data gathering, analysis, and the write-up will be there. It is called the iterative model in the qualitative research. So these are some of the differences of the qualitative research. So one is the focus group discussion in which there will be a 6 to 12 persons guided by the facilitator, during which the members of the group talk freely and spontaneously about a certain topic. There will be a group discussion that is active encouraging of the participants. Then we will summarize the purpose of the study, collect the socio-demographic details, and finally we will give the focus group discussion data, okay, which will be done by means of a sociogram, okay. So this is the seating arrangement and the wrong and the correct method. So there will always be a moderator who will introduce the session and encourage the discussion, explaining the goal of discussion, setting the ground rules, encouraging the participation of all. Okay. Then what are all the strengths and limitations? So the focus group discussion will complement the findings from the surveys, whereas the limitations will be, there is more of the quantitative purpose and very useful for sensitive topics and difficult to assemble. Okay, so these are some of the barriers, like it's more of a time consuming nature, subjective nature, and perceived superior nature of the quantitative research, and it's always not generalizable. Okay. So thus comes the ends of the family and the qualitative research in sociology. So these are some of the references that I have chosen, that is Sociology and Healthcare by John Bond and Segna Bond, and our textbook of Preventive and Social Medicine by Park, and some more sociology textbooks. Okay, so you can also refer. And finally, we will conclude this session. Okay, thank you all.